If you're feeling like you're stuck in a rut with your marketing, then today's episode is one you should definitely check out. I had a fantastic conversation with Kasper Sierslev. He's a Chief Creative Officer for Zite agency and the author of an amazing book called Incredible, which is all about building an in-house marketing agency. However, I had my reservations about whether this type of model would work for me as a micro business owner. And as a result, we ended up exploring so many different options and helpful tips and advice about how you can actually progress things forward even if you're on a limited budget and have limited needs for a big marketing team. We touched on how to use professional agencies to give you strategic support on a very limited basis to keep the cost down, and then utilize places like the Philippines or Vietnam to actually get some of the work done. Then we talked about how you can use professional agencies to help you manage those people, to allow you to have an ongoing relationship with somebody, to build in effect an in-house marketing team, but without you having to be the one that's driving the creativity and the strategy behind the work being done. It was one of the most insightful conversations I've had regarding marketing, and I'd highly recommend you check it out. And do stick around to the end where Kasper shares his top couple of apps which he uses, one which is specifically for marketing and one which is a cool AI tool which I've never heard of before. And remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on future interviews, app reviews and other top tips to make your life and business more systemized and make you more successful. Enjoy. So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day and this is Systemize Your Success. Hey Kasper, thank you so much for joining me today on the show. I want to kick off really just understanding why you do what you do. I think it's always a nice place to start. And obviously you're very passionate about what you do. You've written books on the subject, you write reports on this, which are massively well received in the industry. But why is it you've decided to dedicate your time specifically into this in-house agency model? Why is it so important to you, and what maybe challenges you saw or personal or things you've seen in the industry that have made you think that this is where I need to actually focus all my efforts?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Well, I think it started out 10, 15 years ago. I come from a creative advertising, totally basic standard background. And then I was just growing tired of the whole thing. I was very much in a pitch team. So we were invited in the agency, and then me and my colleague, my partner, were always in the first front line pitching something. Then usually, I wouldn't say usually we won, but we won a lot of times. And then the second chain took over. So I never really got to see things through, work on all the small details. And I really missed that. And then I got an opportunity to move in-house and work with Maersk, a big shipping, logistics, containerization company, oil company at that time as well. And it was just amazing to see how you could actually influence every bit of all this, and also understanding the client, which was now my own company, way better, understanding what really made a difference and not just some fancy headline and that. So that's really how it all started. I was just amazed by how you could influence a lot more by knowing all the brand details and the customer behavior. And if you had a question, you could just walk down and ask someone about it. And so it was really about folding everything out and not just doing the fancy TV commercial.
Ah, cool. So I want to step back, if you like, and actually just to put some background into what we're talking about here, because we mentioned the word in-house agency, and I will hold my hands up that before you actually requested to come on this show, I had no real idea about what an in-house agency is. And so maybe many other people out there have no idea either. So let's just give a background information. What is it that you actually do? What is it that you help you with? What is this in-house agency model? And then we can go into the reasons of why and the benefits, etc., going forward.
Yeah, so I mean, there are totally a lot of different ways to see in-house agencies, but basically it is an advertising agency or a digital agency that has just one company. So it lives within the walls of the company. It's usually not in our model, but it's usually owned by the company. So they hire creative people in, and it's really something that's picking up. We just talked about the reports before, that companies they feel that, also there's a lot of different channels, all you have to be on, and you have to understand your website and everything. So that's really what is happening right now. It started, I mean, it's always been like this in the agencies from the 50s and 60s. Then you had some people in-house, and sometimes it's not an agency. It's more like you probably have some graphic designers, web designers, copywriters, and so on, working with marketing in-house. But in the last couple of years, I think that was the first wave, so to speak. That was bringing in graphic designers and production, because it was just cheaper and faster to do things yourself. Then we had the whole social media wave, second wave of in-housing, where you brought in social media managers because it was, again, too expensive and too cumbersome to reach out to an agency every time you needed to do something. And I think what we're seeing now in the last 3, 4, 5 years is the creative side, the strategy side moving in. So that's where you think that it makes, in a lot of ways, you had this 10, 15 years ago when you brought in brand managers because you thought you would need more control of the entire brand. And now you bring in creative people who actually can work from the inside on crafting creative messages and also working with external agencies. So I don't think I really answered your question, but I talked a lot about everything else. But that's an in-house agency. The funny thing is we do this in-house barometer report every year, and I'm just writing it up, the 25 version right now. The funny thing is that I would say 1/3 of the agencies we call in-house agencies don't see themselves as that. So they have all the in-house creative roles, but they're just part of a marketing team. So it's not really set in stone. This is an in-house agency. This is an in-house setup. But it is about taking in some of the creative development roles, because it just makes more sense that you can walk down the hall and talk to the product specialist, or you have a better brand understanding or a better understanding of the website and all the tools you have. Sometimes, not always.
Yeah. I mean, as you were speaking then, I was just thinking of my experience over the years of working with different entities for marketing. And I've worked with complete external agencies, and I've tried to get them to understand my brand and speak in my voice. And that's been really challenging. And on a couple of occasions, I've spent, a fair amount of money with them and then just not really use anything they've produced because I've just not felt it's actually hit the mark. And then conversely, I've also worked with, I guess it is in a way a sort of an in-house agency, but those people may have been working, some of them part-time, some of them full-time for me. So graphic designers, web developers, copywriters, video editors. But it's been me as the business owner that's been gluing it all together and trying to organize and coordinate. And I think that when I was looking through your website and trying to sort of understand exactly what you did before you came on the show, I was really interested to see how, as a small business owner, when, like in my example, whereas I experienced the external model and I didn't have the budget, I don't think, to make that work, or maybe I just didn't work for me, whatever reason. So I try to do it in-house and cobble these bits together, but then that became my entire world, because I was just basically then like all the stuff, the leadership and the product development and all the other stuff, which I really need to do as well, got pushed to the side to focus on coordinating this chaos. And so that's what I found most intriguing about what you do. And if anyone interested, the website, is it Zite.com or
Site.agency. Yeah, right. Unfortunately, Amazon had bought the .com. We don't know what they're supposed to use it for, but they won't sell it back. So
there you go. Well, Site.agency, if anyone interested, check you out. And I think that one thing that really intrigued me was about, okay, so if I'm really, I guess, the creative director in the company, completely unqualified for the role, I have no experience in this, but that is as a small business owner, you end up wearing lots of hats, Then how do you see me being able to still be involved in the creative process, but getting somebody else in or organizing an in-house team, but without a big budget. It's sort of trying to get this balance right. So I can get my time back, but still have control, but without ending up bankrupting myself.
So yeah, if I can go a bit back because
Yeah, please.
my plan was never to build an in-house agency at Maersk or any other places. It just ended up like that because we had agencies coming in and they never quite understood us. They didn't hit the mark. They say, "Oh, it should be possible to book a container online," and that's fine. But we sold like hundreds of containers or every week 500 containers or something like that, so they never really understood what we were about. It took a long time to onboard them, and so instead and try to understand all these different markets that's totally different from sheep owners in Australia trying to sell lamb across the world, what their needs are in terms of changing direction half the way through the way from Australia to Europe or US or the automotive industry, how that whole conveyor belt of subparts into building a car. All these not small, all these commodities actually had their own ecosystem that you need to understand, and it took forever to onboard someone. So that's why we built it up. Then when I switched to a totally different company called Saxo Bank, which is an online trading platform, not really a bank, I just realized that I could use 95% of all the processes that I built and all the systems and setups. And I think that's what we do today. So we really try to take all the fun out of, of marketing and advertising now by by building processes and workflows around all the boring stuff. You don't have to reinvent the wheel when you have to produce a social media post or a banner or a campaign. You should spend a lot of time on getting the creative part right because that's what really matters. But rolling it out, scaling it to different languages, that's something you can pretty much copy paste. That's a process. And now I'm getting to what you're saying. So I think what you should focus on is not trying to spread yourself too thin, not trying too many platforms and too many different channels and then figure out a way that you can actually do as little as possible on the whole production side. Maybe produce 2 months of content and assets at once because it's much easier that way to produce a bulk. Figure out ways that you can collaborate with maybe great freelance creative people to create those a bulk of headlines or images that you can reuse instead of trying to coordinate. So I think it's a lot about focus and narrowing it down, and then figure out a way that you can almost automate all the stuff that keeps dragging you out of the of the things you really want to do. So I guess that's what we do. We help companies in all sizes and scales doing all the boring stuff.
Cool. I mean, it's very interesting hearing you say all that because actually, like now, what I do for my podcast, so this podcast, for example, and what I was hoping to do is I'll tell you what I currently do, and then be interested to hear because I know there'll be other people out there that do similar stuff to me. I'd be interested to hear like where you would see that your skill sets, your strategies and your systems will come in and complement what we already have in place, and how then I could actually then potentially scale what I'm currently doing without actually doing too much more work. That's my theory. So here's what I currently do. So right now I basically have, because I'm a systems guy, you probably guessed by the name of the podcast, and I love A, automation, B, systems to get other people to do stuff for me consistently, and C, not having to reinvent the wheel. So all those things that you just mentioned are like literally like those are the things I am most passionate about. And so what I do now is I record this podcast. So it's now a Tuesday afternoon, and I'll sit here and I'll have this chat with you for 30 minutes or whatever. And then that's it. it's automatically saved somewhere, and then the team will then pick that up. They will convert that into some social media posts using some ChatGPT prompts and a bit of dabbling on the side as well. We use various other AI tools and image creation, things like Canva and stuff, to actually just produce our thumbnails. And what we produce is a email and a couple of social media posts, a LinkedIn post. We potentially should be doing a blog post, but haven't actually kicked that off at the moment, or sorry, aren't actually doing that right now. But I just feel that there's so much more that we should be doing. And you mentioned about getting freelancers in and stuff. And again, for me, it's like, I know this is all totally possible. I've even done many of these things, but it's actually just the me putting the time and the effort into finding the right people and coordinating them without me having to handhold people through the entire process. So my dream would be that I'd come to someone like you and say, look, this is what I'm currently doing. Take it from here.
Yeah. But it actually seems like you're doing all the things we normally recommend: setting it up, having a system, processes, doing a lot of the variations of the same content at once. Because a lot of times we see that people are then they're doing one idea here, go to lunch, do something else, and they're spending a lot of time on not getting anywhere or doing one ad or one post or something like that. But what I would recommend then, and I would probably recommend that for all small business owners, is to find someone great once a year and invite them in. Say, can we just do the idea session? I don't want to see your final work. I just want to see black ink on white paper, funny headlines, play around with things. And I want to be in the room because I want to understand the way that you're thinking. That's really what we do it with all our clients, big and small, when there's a campaign coming up. And it's really about, picking people's brain, having the creative people coming in, but not paying for the entire agency and something like that. That's another way of, I think, of scaling the creativity, and just write everything down, write all the bad headlines. You can even feed that into your AI afterwards and train that on their ideas. But I think, and then it's figuring out, now you can build AI agents that can actually do a lot of these things, control itself, post somewhere. When you write the blog post, then do the 5 social media posts, variations. You still have to be human in there and breathe through, but it's really a process these days. That I just had a talk this morning about AI tools and where we're going, and it's crazy. We prepared last week and we changed it this morning because, I don't know, 5 or 10% of what we were saying seems like it was old news now. So, but really the automation thing is amazing, I think, and the way that you can build a prompt library that keeps, evaluating what the first AI is doing and then rewriting some. So that's probably what I would do more of.
And is that the kind of stuff you help people do as well? Actually, to
yeah.
work with the AI rather than try to stay in the old way of doing things and be purely human. Is actually
we had this
augmented.
scary talk this morning with it was talking out with our own employees, saying, some of you may, some of the jobs you have may be going away, but we actually want to, we want to have AI colleagues or employees in a couple of months. Hopefully you will still here, but you will be doing something else. So instead of being a copywriter, you will be an editor. So you will read through what we're doing. You'll be better at prompting and asking and tweaking all those things that takes it from good to great. But you will not be doing the typewriting yourself.
The donkey work, so to speak. Yeah. I mean, from personal experience, that's exactly what we've been using it for. It's like, to be honest, a lot of, like, when I'm busy, stuff will just go out. I mean, my marketing manager will look over it, but she's not a copywriter. She's more logistics and operational, but she's been doing it for long enough to spot the really terrible ones, and had some really. I mean, she's actually quite good at doing headlines and things now. She's learned the skill, but primarily it's like the where I see my role with the AI now is A, improving the prompts, and B, doing that final sweep and then pushing it back to the AI again for more and
Yeah.
more sort of like tweaks and tweaks and tweaks. Um, because I know what I like when I see it, but I sometimes find it very hard to put those what I'm feeling in my brain into the words that I want to say. Um,
Yeah, but still, I mean, I teach at the Danish School of Advertising. I have this one class, and I always say to people, even before AI, I used to say it's difficult to come up with 100 bad ideas in a row. So if you keep trying, you will get something that will spark something. And if I share my bad ideas or my not so bad ideas with you, it will probably spark something within you. And I think that's what you can use AI for. It can get you those 70 bad ideas that can spark something you say, oh, this word and this, maybe there's something in there. And then you can keep going. So it's more like a partner that you can bounce off ideas with, you can have brainstorms with, and then you can say, great, write me 5 variations of this headline and so on.
yeah.
And when you get to that point, we have now a brand tone of voice agent that we use whenever we write headlines or copy and say, is this compliant to our brand tone of voice? And unfortunately, a lot of times when I write something, I wrote the tone of voice and now I'm writing the copy and says, nah, you're not really hitting it. But still,
You don't sound like you. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I think it's a great way to evolve and get challenged. But it's also a black hole you can get sucked into in terms of just spending time on something that's not really getting better. So it is the combination of of people who can actually help you.
Yeah, and on that note, something you mentioned before, which I thought was really interesting. I've never thought about it before, but you mentioned about getting, I guess, like having a strategy session, like periodic, 6 monthly or whatever, yearly, whatever, a strategy session where you actually get in the room with a creative person or team and just brainstorm and just churn out ideas and concepts. And that seems to me like a super exciting thing to do because, like, as a business owner, I've done that with coaches for other areas of the business, whether it's like thinking about the just a business strategy, like having a strategy session, like where should we be actually looking at growing the business or taking the business, whatever. But I've never thought about it from a creative perspective. That's a really
No,
interesting idea.
yeah, and I think because I think we started it even at Maersk, I think, because one of the pitfalls of in-house is that you get tunnel vision, or you have this echo chamber where you invent your own words and you can't really see yourself from the outside. So I think it's really worth hiring someone in to challenge you, but be in the same room. So it's not like an agency where you give them a brief and then they come back 3 weeks later with something. You're in the room, and if they say something, you say, "Oh, that's funny," or "That's the right direction," and then you work together. And in reality, it's not that expensive. I mean, normally you pay agencies for their time, so I mean, it of course pay them well for what they're doing and for picking their brains, but it's not. I mean, you don't get the whole entourage, whatever it's called, as you do when you brief an agency. Then you get the client director and everyone. Here you say, can I just hire two of your creative people to work with me for 2 or 3 days, just bouncing off some ideas, but I want all the ideas afterwards, and maybe we can work together. But maybe not. Maybe I'm just using it myself.
Yeah, yeah,
And
totally.
I
I
think,
guess it's a great way to get to know if you see eye to eye or you connect, like see a connection with that person. Anyway, I'm actually interestingly doing a similar type of session, not for marketing at all, but really just for the business strategy with a COO type role, so a bit like a fractional COO. So I'm actually having a day with that person in a couple of weeks' time, where I'm
yeah,
just basically going to be saying, "Look, get into my head, get into my business, and help me see the things I can't see."
yeah, yeah. And I think, and I think that I think that works amazingly, because a lot of times, you're in your own room and your own business and knowing all the things but you can't see yourself from the outside, and you also have all the things, sometimes the we tried that earlier or years ago is nice, but sometimes it's also something that you need to challenge. And it's fine because sometimes you get people from the outside saying, what about this? Yeah, we tried that. So yeah, but that was years ago and you did this and that. Maybe if you do it another way. And you wouldn't do it if you're on your own, then you would just scout that idea before you even start thinking about maybe there's another way around it. So
So I tell you one of my my biggest fear about going down this route and why I've held off looking at whether it's building a whole in-house team or even just getting proper professional help in looking at my marketing is cost. Is my thinking that like I can't afford to hire a team. Like I can't afford a copywriter and a graphic designer and a video editor full time. I don't need that at this point in my business. I don't have that revenue or that size of business that needs that that number of person hours working with me all the time. So like for me, like the idea of going down this route is scary. I'm worried about the costs and also worried about I guess, the commitment for me to make it work. So if I was coming to you as a potential client, those are my fears. Like, what would you say to me to help me get past my barriers and actually move forward with something like this?
well, actually, I would start with the calculator and the Excel sheet and figuring out how. I mean, that's I used to be art director, but so but but for me, it's a lot about doing the math, figuring out how much do you actually need. Does it make sense to hire someone? I don't think it makes sense all the time, maybe not even half the times. It depends on the size of the company, how much content you're putting out. Um, Mostly, we recommend for smaller companies to figure out, then set up your AI tool, set it up with a few freelancers. Maybe they are offshore somewhere because you don't need them close by. And then it's also about not getting too tired of your own ideas and seeing yourself and seeing the same headline all over. I'm part of a small startup in the US. We are four people now, I think five people. And it's called Data Classroom. It has nothing to do with what I'm doing now. I just started out helping these guys building a platform to assist teachers teaching statistics and math and all that. And pure out of, of lack of money, we ended up saying, "What about we just write some really funny, clever headlines, really big, and pick a color?" So it's a lot about consistency, and luckily I can draw, so I made some illustrations, but that's basically it. And we have four or five of these, not even four or five, three headlines that we've been using all over that still seems to kick off. It's something like, imagine a classroom full of kids who love statistics. What are the odds, for instance? Or the days of boring statistics are numbered. Something like that, where you play with words and it still works. It's still whenever we do yeah, we go to a conference and we just put those postcards or that backdrop up. It's still those same three or four headlines that we use, and people come over and say, "Oh, that's funny, that's interesting," and that's all you need. That's basically, well, that's marketing, right? You need to
Yeah.
have people to stop and come over. So
Or
so
stop,
it's
or
not
stop
like we have.
stalling.
Yeah, we don't have a big budget. I don't think we ever really probably never really had a budget. It's more like we put in some money sometimes. So I think it's also about finding, you know, putting some effort into building some kind of evergreen but really great content, because I think great ads, great content, great creativity works better than just a lot of it.
I think it's a really interesting angle because in the day now of more on social media, more channels, more posts, getting out there, 5 posts a day, 10 posts a day, 20 posts a day. You know, if you look at some of the influencers they're talking about, there's okay, yeah, they've got £1 billion revenue in advertising or whatever, but they're doing 50 posts a day or whatever. And it's like, so it seems like that's the way to go. But like, if you take top bands, for example, so, music bands, like they can produce hundreds and hundreds of hits or thousands of hits, I mean, thousands of songs over the years. But we as consumers only remember the top five they've ever produced.
Yeah.
And every single concert you go to, that's what you want to hear. And so the bands get sick of playing them, I'm sure, but they
Yeah.
still do it. But
They
us as
probably
business
they end
owners,
up as a cover band of themselves sometimes
totally.
almost.
But
Yeah.
as business owners, we do the opposite almost. It's like, oh yeah, we get bored with our own ideas. Exactly what I said. We get bored with our own ideas. We get bored with saying the same stuff, even if it's worked in the past. So we think we need to create something new.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that's a really interesting and valuable lesson to actually take heed of. Yeah.
There's a company called System One who does a lot of analyzing into advertising and what works, and they put out a report last year about consistency, which is, I mean, it's probably the most boring thing to talk about in advertising and creativity. But in reality, when you look at all the big brands, the big consumer brands like Burger King or Coca-Cola or Apple or whatever, they've all been extremely consistent. They, in the way they talk, their look and feel. It's not that often they change something, and when they do, it's like it's almost a shitstorm when Pepsi changed the logo, then they change it back. So I think consistency is really underrated in a lot of ways. I mean, you can put something on top of it. You can have you have your Specsavers campaign should have gone to Specsavers about. It's been the same campaign they've been running since the, I don't know, 80s or something like that. They keep doing new variations of it of people who can't see, but that's basically it's just a generic commercial for glasses. But still they keep building on this. I don't know any other uh optician. I probably do optician brands, but none that's actually stands for something. So I think consistency and trusting that those few ideas or being or that tone of voice is much better than trying to, yeah, spread yourself too thin, come up with new ideas and new things to post every week. And so yeah, I think that's that's definitely a point. Not try to do too much.
It's also exhausting,
Yeah,
especially like with me, it's basically in effect it's just me, and so there's only so much one can do, and there's only so much time I can think into being creative and coming up with new stuff. So the less I have to do that, the
yeah,
better in some ways, even if it's a bit boring.
yeah. But then, I mean, I always say to people, if you see your own ads too much, then you're doing it wrong. You shouldn't be your target group. You should filter yourself out. So it's probably fine. So then you have to do something if you see your own ads all the time, then or your own content.
Cool. So I want to just drawing things to a close. What's the one piece of advice that you would love to have told your maybe previous self, or that you like to share with business owners? For me, especially small business owners, like when they're thinking about going down this route or they are stuck in a trap, like what do you see that's like a common problem that you just feel that you wish you could just fix that and the whole world would get better?
So I have two things.
Okay.
One of them is really trust in creativity. I think there's been this misconception that you could buy social media ads and banners and you could get a lot of attention. But in reality, I it's not that it's not working, it's just it's not as cheap as it seems. So sometimes TV is actually cheaper in terms, and I'm not saying that to small business owners. I'm just saying it seems because you're only paying micro payments all the time, but in reality, you often end up paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, or maybe not hundreds of thousands, but a lot of money on small ads and small posts that you boost and you're not really getting the effect of it. I saw a number the other day where they said, the whole attribution problem where you think you're getting your leads from is 190% overrated for paid search and 60% for social media and something like that. Um, so one of the things is to trust too much in the whole social media platform banners and not trust the creativity enough. So really spend time on making one great ad, one great headline, doing one fun thing out in reality instead of spending that. I think that would be the my best advice. I
Can I
promise
ask
you
you,
to.
yeah,
Yeah, but
can I ask you just this is a very simple question, just running off the back of that. So if you come up with something that's working, and I'd argue I probably haven't got this thing just yet, but if I did, and then you have your social media accounts, are we talking now about pushing out that same concept just onto paid, or actually is this something you just use regularly into your general whatever it is, stories and themes or whatever, like continue just repeating yourself almost
yeah, I would say the last one, repeating the same message. So, I mean,
everywhere?
when we had that data classroom headline with a classroom of kids who love statistics, I mean, that sparked ideas for three or four other headlines in the same direction. So it's not like we're only using that one headline, but it kind of gave us an idea. And then we could see when we put that up on the wall behind us at a fair or event somewhere that people stopped. So when you put that on a just the headline of a social media ad, we could also see that it works. So it was then you start playing around with it, come up with variations or something like that. So it's not like just that one, but it's more like
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, the
yeah.
theme, yeah, I
But
guess.
instead of trying a billion things, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, cool. You said there was another one. Can you remember what that was? If there was,
Yeah, but the other one is more for creative people because that's something I struggled with for years. So, and that's really that, creativity is really a habit. It's not something that happens while you're in the shower or it's something you can train, you can learn creative methods to come up with ideas and something like that. And I really encourage everyone who works with marketing to read books, read my book. You can have it for free if you want.
what's
But
your book called?
it's called Incredible. So you don't have to read everything, but there's a part in there about different ways to get ideas. I can put a link up and people can get
Absolutely.
a PDF version for free they can download.
Can you get it through your website?
Uh, as an audiobook, actually, yeah.
Through,
But
through, yeah,
I'll
the link
make
will go
the
in the show
PDF.
notes. Just can you get it through Zite.agency? Is there a link on
Yeah,
that somewhere? Yeah, cool.
yeah,
So if
yeah,
people want to find it, just easy because
yeah,
like whoever goes to the show notes after the show.
yeah.
But I'm not saying
No,
you
but
shouldn't if you're listening to this, by the way. Head to the show notes.
yeah, yeah. But I really think so. So that's the whole thing. That it's you can actually learn to be creative. You can learn to come up with ideas. Some people have easier access to creative skills, or but everybody could probably learn this. Learn to write better headlines. Learn to find these tips and tricks that actually make ads stands out and something like that. So. And I
No,
wish I knew that because I was struggling with that for years when I was younger.
yeah. I mean, I am by no means in any which way an expert at this, but I've done extensive reading from many marketing coaches or whatever, and I've been through lots of trainings and whatever with different marketing avenues over the years, and just from doing that and coming from a background of computing and science, I now feel that. Like I actually understand it. I can see a headline and go, "Oh, that's good," or I can actually think I
Yeah,
can create something that's okay, and that's definitely something I have. It's a skill that I've learned, and
yeah,
I completely agree that I think we can learn. I'm a true believer that basically our brains are pretty fabulous things, and we can actually train ourselves to do
yeah,
pretty much anything we want, given enough time and effort and energy. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm with you on
So
that.
so that was the two main things I would tell. And then you could do it yourself. Then you don't have to hire anyone. You can just work on your headlines yourself, and you can keep the in-house team very small to
Yeah,
just
in-house team of one.
of
Yeah.
one.
Then we're back to the problem of having no time. So no, we're
Yeah.
not going to go down that route. Cool. It's been absolutely fabulous talking with you, Casper. I do like to wrap up with a few signature questions, if I may.
May.
First off, what are your favorite apps or browser plugins, either specifically for marketing or just stuff you love playing with?
So right now, my favorite thing is Lovable, which is it's called wipe coding, right? So I don't know to write code in it. I actually do. My dad's a programmer, but prompt coding, and we built some amazing small web apps just by prompting. It's kind
Lovable.
of, yeah, Lovable.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Lovable.
Dot yeah.
Yep. Cool.
So I spent way too much time on that trying to, create small games and just by prompting and asking, doing front end things for our own platform. So I think that's really fun. Then I drive a lot, so I have a lot of different podcasts that I love to listen to. Um, and then right now we have a tool that we just introduced called Neurons, which is Swedish, Danish. It's not a startup anymore, but it's an AI tool built of I think he's Swedish, professor at Stanford who did eye tracking studies since 2002, something like that. And he put that data into his AI prediction model now. So it helps us when we create websites, TV ads, social media to understand, is this too cognitive demanding? Where's the focus? What are people looking at? Will people remember the headlines and so on? And right now, I'm just spending too much of my spare time testing things that we've done ourselves to see, oh, maybe we could have done this better or we could learn from that. I'm not trying to
I'm
sell
just
it.
looking at it, neurosync.com.
It's called, yeah.
Neurons, but it's Neurons Inc. Oh, neuronsinc.com.
Yeah,
That's
dot
it.
com. Yeah.
Neuronsinc.com. That looks pretty cool as well.
Yeah.
All right, awesome.
It's a bit on the expensive side, but it's really interesting to see how you can. And I think they're still using humans to validate the results, but it's just interesting. I come from a analytic background before I started all this marketing nonsense, so I have a I have a nerd hidden somewhere inside of me.
A deep geek in you somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same here, don't worry. Cool. Another question for you. Who else do you think would be a great guest on this podcast?
Um, so I don't know if you can get him, but I'm a big fan of. I mentioned System One earlier. It's a British company who does a lot of ad testing, and they also have a tool, not in another way, like neurons analyzing TV. And their chief innovation officer, Orlando Wood, it's probably difficult to get hold of, but you could try. I think he's
Casper, I'll say that you recommended me. I'm sure he'll jump
yeah,
on.
we actually connected. I was totally starstruck when he approached me on LinkedIn. None of my friends knew who he was, so they didn't quite feel the same. But
Well, if you fancy giving me a soft intro, I'd be very grateful. So
yeah, no, he's really, really, really cool and have some really, really cool insights into whole marketing, not just in-house, but marketing and neuroscience and what's really happening.
cool.
So.
Thank you. And finally, the title of this podcast is Systemize Your Success. But what does success mean to you and why?
Oh, for me, it's like, so I have the double bass behind me. I used to play in a jazz club way before all this, and I'm not that good, but in reality, you can probably learn to play, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 standards, and that's all you need to know. So that's the the standard jazz songs. And if you know those, then you don't really have to think a lot. And I think that's the whole system thing. So for me, it would be that the agency, all the in-house agencies that we built, that people are using the same systems that we develop, the ways of working, the processes, so they would have more time to do the fun stuff, the creative stuff. That would be a success for us if they actually don't, reinvent the wheel all the time. Was that a decent answer, I guess?
That's a brilliant answer because it is so close to my heart because that is exactly what my dream is for people with operations. So I help people exactly what you just described for marketing. What I do is to help people with their operations, so their staff hiring, management, their task delegation, their systems for creating systems, etc. And I want people just to use what I create and not have to reproduce it all from scratch. So I totally am like massively love. That's probably the best answer I've heard actually for that reason.
Ah, yeah. Well, I kind of pulled it out of thin air, but
Good.
but that is actually what I'm hoping for. That's the whole idea of Zite, of what we've been building, is to replicate and build boring processes that people don't have to, do it.
Fantastico. Cool. Kasper, if people want to find you, get hold of you, what is the best way for them to find out more about what you do and maybe get in touch?
So they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only one with that last name. So it's Sierslev. Or they could go to Zite.
Kasper, do you want to just spell that for us?
Sierslev. So
and that will obviously be in the show notes.
It's in the show notes.
Yeah. And I'll leave. If
or
I
they
remember,
can go to Zite.agency and I'm also there.
and
just reach out.
Zite with a Z, isn't it? Zite with a Z.
Yeah.
Zite.agency. Perfect. Kasper, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've had a lot of fun today. Hope you enjoyed it too.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
Cool. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye.